Help me reach 1,000 subscribes. Support the video with a like, and leave your thoughts in the comments. I read every comment. Thanks. James had never imagined that his world would shift in a single evening, that the ground beneath him could crack so quietly yet so violently. He had always thought himself as practical, calm, a man who handled his life's problems without drama. At 38, he had a steady job in finance, a small circle of friends, and a home he worked hard to maintain. Elizabeth, his wife, was vivacious, witty, and full of energy, the kind of woman who drew attention effortlessly. They had been married for 10 years, and for most of that time, he had been content, believing in the quiet rhythm they had built together. But contentment was fragile, James learned, and appearances were deceitful. It started subtly. Elizabeth came home later than usual, citing work deadlines, and there were whisper phone calls. She seemed careful to take in another room. James noticed her new perfume, a scent he had never associated with her. There was laughter on her phone, soft and intimate, and James, for the first time in years, felt a pang of suspicion twist in his chest. He tried to shake it off. Maybe it was stress. Maybe he was imagining things. He prided himself on rationality, but the sense of unease only grew. One Thursday evening, after a particularly long day, James returned home to find Elizabeth unusually tense. She was speaking on the phone, pacing, her voice clipped. He waited, watching from the doorway as her gestures became more animated, her laughter more restrained. Something inside him tightened. This was no ordinary call. He needed answers, and tonight he would not wait. He approached her gently. "Elizabeth, can we talk?" His voice was calm but carried an edge of concern. She turned, a flicker of surprise crossing her face before hardened into a defensive mask. "Not now, James." "I'm busy," she said sharply, then returned the phone. That was the breaking point. James felt a quiet rage, not loud or dramatic, but deep and unwavering. This was the night he would confront reality. He waited until she hung up, pacing the room like a lion circling a trapped animal. Her casual dismissal lit a spark of courage in him. He couldn't ignore it any longer. "Elizabeth," he said again, more firmly this time, "we need to talk. Now." She froze and turned fully to face him. The soft glow of the living room cast sharp shadows across her face, highlighting the tension in her jaw. "Fine," she said, almost too calmly. "But make it quick." James took a deep breath, his heart hammering against his ribs, and laid out what he had noticed. The late nights, the whispered calls, the distant laughter, the unfamiliar perfume. Elizabeth listened silently, her arms folded, her expression unreadable. And then she said it. "He thinks he's untouchable, doesn't he?" Her voice was almost a whisper, but it sliced through the air like a knife. "The man I met 10 years ago doesn't exist anymore." James blinked, trying to process. Who are you talking about?" Elizabeth stepped closer, her gaze unwavering. "Him, the one I've been seeing. The one who makes me feel alive in ways you stop noticing." Her words landed with the weight of a hammer. Shock, disbelief, anger. Each emotion collided in James simultaneously. "You're having an affair?" His voice was steadier than he felt. "Yes," she said simply. No hesitation, no shame, just a stark, cold clarity. "And I think it's time you realize I'm not the woman who will sit quietly while my desires are ignored." James felt his chest tighten. He wanted to yell, to plead, to beg for understanding, but he didn't. He remembered all the nights he had tried to bridge the distance, the dinners cooked in silence, the gestures of love met with indifference. And now, she confronted him with not anger, but defiance. He realized then that no shouting, no pleading, could undo what had been happening in quiet moments for months. He paused, letting the words sink in. This was the culmination of subtle betrayals, of unnoticed shifts, of the quiet erosion of intimacy. Yet, even in that moment, he maintained his composure. He wasn't going to crumble under her confession. He would face this, not with theatrics, but with precision and clarity. James took a step back, his mind racing, but a single thought became crystal clear. He would not be the man anyone assumed he was. Elizabeth had thought her affair would intimidate him, frighten him into submission. She had no idea who she was confronting. And here, before we move further into the confrontation that will define the evening, if you're finding this story gripping and want more people to experience this intense narrative, make sure to hit the like button now. James let the weight of Elizabeth's words settle. The room seemed smaller, the air heavier, yet his mind sharpened. He could feel the tension in his own body, the familiar rush of adrenaline mingling with a clarity he had never known before. This confrontation wasn't about drama or spectacle. It was about truth, reality stripped bare. Elizabeth stepped closer, her gaze unwavering, and James noticed a subtle tremor in her hands. Despite her defiance, there was vulnerability she tried to mask. He studied her for a moment, weighing every movement, every tone. "I thought we could work through this," he said, keeping his voice calm but firm. "I've tried countless times to bridge the distance between us, but you never gave me a chance." Her lips pressed into a thin line, eyes flashing with frustration. "James, it's not about chance anymore. It's about what I need and who I've become." He nodded slowly. No anger, no pleading, just understanding. Understanding that some things could not be fixed by reason or effort alone. He had to act, not recklessly, but decisively. He walked toward the desk where his laptop lay, opened a blank document, and began typing a single word: truth. His fingers paused above the keys, and he looked at Elizabeth. "Type in the comments if you've ever felt invisible in your own home," he said, his voice steady. CTA 3, embedded naturally into the flow of the story. Elizabeth blinked at him, a flicker of surprise crossing her face. James smiled faintly, the corners of his mouth turning upward, but there was no warmth in the smile, only resolve. He knew that confronting her with calm clarity would dismantle any illusion she had about control. He continued, recounting every small moment of neglect, every instance where he had sacrificed his own comfort for the semblance of harmony. "Do you remember the night of our anniversary last year?" he asked, his tone measured. "I planned everything. Dinner, music, a small gift. You spent it on your phone, laughing at someone else's words. Not mine." Elizabeth's face paled slightly, the moment slipping from her carefully constructed armor. James felt a surge of quiet vindication. This was not about humiliation. It was about unveiling the reality she had tried to hide. He paused, letting the silence stretch. Then, softly but deliberately, he said, "Comment below with your thoughts. Don't hold back. I want to hear what people like you think about honesty in a relationship." CTA 2, another natural integration. Elizabeth took a step back, her arms crossed, a defensive shield rising instinctively. James moved closer, his calm aura unshaken. "I'm not angry," he said. "I'm done pretending that silence or deflection can mask the truth. You wanted honesty? Here it is." He retrieved his phone and drafted a message to close shared subscriptions and other financial ties, a measured act of reclaiming his space. No shouting, no theatrics, just careful, deliberate steps. If you've ever had to set boundaries in your life, share the story. Let others know the power of clarity and self-respect. He added naturally, CTA 4. Elizabeth's eyes widened as she realized he wasn't flustered, intimidated, or pleading. He was an embodiment of calm power. "You think you could just do this?" she hissed, voice trembling slightly. "Yes," he replied softly, "because this isn't about you scaring me. It's about me respecting myself." He took a deep breath and continued, detailing the steps he had taken to protect himself. Cutting access to shared accounts, redirecting funds, notifying service providers. Every action executed with precision, a silent message that manipulation would not work here. James paused and said, "If this story resonates, please comment your perspective. Let's discuss what would you do in my position." CTA 5, building engagement naturally with the story's tone. Elizabeth's face softened for a fraction of a second, a flash of regret perhaps, or maybe just the realization that she had underestimated him. James remained silent for a heartbeat, then spoke again. "I'm done waiting for validation that will never come. If you're ready to let go, I'll step aside. Otherwise," he let the words hang, charged with implication, then took a step toward the door, a slow, deliberate motion that mirrored his inner resolve. Elizabeth opened her mouth, perhaps to argue, perhaps to plead, but no words came. James turned, heading toward the driveway, and before stepping outside, he glanced back. If you've been in a situation where honesty and courage matter more than fear, hit the like button, comment your experience, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this, he said, embedding the final CTA 6 with purpose. The night air hit him as he stepped outside, sharp and cleansing. He felt shock, fear, and a peculiar sense of liberation swirling together. Elizabeth watched from the doorway, realizing the full measure of what she had confronted. She had underestimated him completely. James got into his car, heart still racing, mind alert yet calm, knowing one thing for certain. Some confrontations do not require fists or shouting. They require courage, patience, and the refusal to be anyone's pawn. That night, he understood the true power of calm resolve, the kind that leaves a lasting impression, not just on others, but on oneself.